Hey everyone, Chuck Quinton here. We've got our first winner of our free golf lesson, free swing review here. Marco from Italy, beautiful Italy, is our first victim in our lesson here. So Marco, thank you so much for submitting your swing so quickly. You have a swing that's going to be a great example. It's going to help a ton of golfers because I see this all the time, and it's the old lazy lower body. And when I say lazy, what I really mean by that is not so much that you're not trying to use your lower body, you just don't know what to do with it. And the reason this is, a lot of people are super confused. They get fixated on the club, hitting the ball. It actually leads to not being able to hit the ball. As you'll see here in just a moment, you're going to tend to hit a little fat because you don't know how to use your legs. And that is so common in not just golf, in every sport. In other sports, it's a lot easier to learn because we get to step, we get to transfer our weight naturally, we're moving our hips naturally. But in the golf swing, because our feet are planted to the ground, it becomes so tricky. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to show you what's going on in your swing, how to fix it, and then a video at the end that's going to walk you through this that's on the site so you can spend more time focusing on the drill that I'm going to give you on how to do this. So first of all, excuse me, I've got a few lines drawn here. These lines are somewhat arbitrary because the angle that Marco submitted his swing is obviously at a quarter angle. It's not directly face on, not directly down the line. It's more face on, but it's going to get us something to work with. So don't pay too much attention to when you see these lines. Obviously, you're going to see a lot of movement, but because the angles are off, they're not going to be 100% accurate. But it'll give you a reference point in space for what we're talking about. So what we're going to focus on primarily is the lower body. Obviously, you're going to see Marco's head move quite a bit here. We'll talk about that briefly as well. But the big thing that I want to talk about is watch this right leg for starters. So the first thing you're going to see is moving this right leg, straightening it up, and it's okay to lose some flexion in the knee. You don't want to lose all of it and lock it out, but you can lose some. But as we lose a lot of flexion in that knee, it allows the hips to over-rotate. So now, I know again it's difficult to tell because of the angle, but if you look at where Marco's hips are now to where they are here, he's made a huge hip turn and also stood up. Notice how much higher his head is now than where it was at address. Left arm's pushed across the body. If we could see from down the line, his hands would be very, very low. What this is a very weak position to be in. It's very powerless. When you let those hips spin like this, you turn them a ton, you lock out that right knee, the left knee is moved, it's buckled in. This is a very weak position to be in, and the reason for this is because people just don't know what to do with their lower body in the golf swing. And again, because we don't get that step, we don't get that natural fluidity in movement, it's very difficult. And that's why I created the video that I'm going to show you at the end of this, the Unleashing Speed video for those of you familiar in Phase 3. This is the drill that's perfect for fixing this because once we get here, the downswing doesn't matter. It's just a big bucket of compensatory parts, so nothing's going to work correctly from here. Marco, you do a great job of trying to get your head back down close to where it started, but you can see we're way back. Notice this was the start of the left side of your head at address, and now notice as we get down to impact, it's 6 inches further back than where it was. So of course you're going to notice your divot's going to start back here. You're going to hit it a little chunky, and that's not any fun. And then you can see, and again, for golfers at home watching this right now, I want so many of you are going to see so much of what you do in your own swing here. Notice how Marco's not really pulled up to a full follow through. He can stay kind of chilled with his feet, lower body kind of slid. You can see the old classic old school bowed left leg here instead of posting up on this. And so again, this is just because we don't know what to do with our lower body, but I promise you the drill that I'm going to give you at the end of this video is going to address all of these things, and it's a fun drill to do. So let's look at what it should look like. We'll use my swing as an example, and the reason I want to use this, because you're going to be able to see my legs really well because I'm wearing shorts in this video, so it's very easy to see exactly what the legs are doing, and it's so critical. So what you're going to notice, and again I'm going to cover this in the bonus video at the end, but you're going to see that by the time my left arm gets just above parallel, my lower body is going to stop moving. So first you can see my right leg definitely not straightening up, my hips definitely aren't over rotating, but watch my lower body as my left arm gets close to parallel to the ground, right about here, my lower body's done. I'm no longer turning, going back. I'm getting ready to go the other way. So you'll notice that my hands and arms and clubs still going back. My lower body's done because my lower body is sprung, it's loaded, and now it's going to start going the other way. So now you can see I've already started transitioning back to the left. You can see my left hip, my left knee, everything's starting to move while the club is still falling into its set position at the top. And then I can drive really aggressively with my legs. The key here is that the legs need a head start. Your hips, your trunk, these are big muscles. You're moving your biggest bone structures in your body, and they need time. And if you move everything kind of all together as one piece, your lower body will always be outran by your arms and hands, because your arms and hands, shoulders, fast twitch muscle fibers, they can fire so quickly compared to the lower body. So what I'm doing is just by stopping my lower body movement early in the backswing, and in the drill you're going to see you kind of stop you're going to imagine that you stop and your left arm's parallel to the ground, and then you've got to take this step that I'm going to teach you to start going back to the left, and that gives you just that split second of a head start with your lower body, so that by the time you get an impact, you can see my left leg is still straightening through the hitting area. Watch my left knee, and again, this is why I'm using this video, because you can see very clearly with shorts on what's really happening there. My left leg is still moving and then fully posted up. Now think about that. How much time, how many frames did it take for my lower body to get into this position? It needed a ton. I needed to be so far ahead of my arms that I started my lower body movement back to the left by the time my left arm was about parallel to the ground. Now that's the key that I want you to focus on in this video in just a second. So now if we go back to Marco's swing, it'll be easier to see kind of what's going on here. You're going to see his lower body over rotate. Now his left arm's parallel to the ground, hips are starting to stand now, and he's losing his posture. So many of you who lose your posture in your backswing, it's actually most of the times directly related to how you're moving your lower body in the backswing. And that's what's causing you to stand up, and then you're going to hack down with your arms and shoulders because the lower body didn't get loaded up. That's the key. You have to load your lower body correctly in the backswing, in the right timing, the right sequence, and it's all simple stuff. It's all basic fundamentals. But the fastest way to learn this is this drill that I'm going to show you in this next part of the video.
Okay, so here's what we want to be looking at to get this sequence of how to use your lower body correctly. This is in phase 3, Unleashing Speed, the primary video for that. So what you're going to learn in this video is how to load up in the right sequence, and it's going to be feeling again that your arm, whether you're focusing on left arm or right arm, it doesn't matter. We're going to focus on the right arm in this video. We're going to preset it, get it loaded into position, and you'll see in just a second. But what you're going to be focusing on primarily is getting your sequencing to take that step so that you'll feel, instead of not knowing what to do with your lower body or how to load it up in the backswing, what you're going to do is feel how to move it in the downswing. And because you're going to learn how your body should move in the downswing, you'll naturally start doing things differently in the backswing, because it won't make sense doing what you're doing now if you're trying to move a certain way in the downswing.
Onto my toe, and then as I plant my heel, I want to push it down and straighten that leg. What happens to my hip? It gets open. Straightening your leg, opening your hip, pushing off of that toe to do it quickly as you pivot onto that toe and then snap that foot down is where speed comes from, to move your hips quickly. Most golfers don't move their hips much at all. So for you to get this feeling of pushing down, pivoting onto your toe, and then you can even rotate your foot to point it out to get a feeling for your hips rotating quickly. This will help you move everything faster so that you can throw harder. Now, of course, in the golf swing, we're not going to add this big pivot movement because...
Okay, Marco, so now as you see, when I'm doing this movement, you'll notice that I'm not turning my lower body very much at all. I'm really just turning my upper body to get my arm into a loaded position, and then I'm taking that step, pivoting onto that toe, and then rotating the hips. That's going to get you focused on getting your lower body out of the way first, instead of being so worried about what the club's doing or your arms, your position at the top or what have you. It's so critical to focus on getting this lower body cleared out of the way and moving it powerfully and in the right sequence and getting it to lead. And that's what I want you to focus on.
feeling how they create speed in the swing and give you power to help propel your arm. But at first, let's keep it a little bit in check so that you're not going a little bit too crazy with it. So as you're doing this, you're going to again preset your arm, rotate back, and so once you've made...
Again, notice here, my hips haven't made much of a turn. I'm not focused on what they're doing in the backswing per se. What I'm doing is getting ready to take this step. So rather than thinking about, connecting all the dots, A, B, C, D, E, how do I get my body in this position, this position, this position throughout every single little minute phase of the swing, think about what the end goal is. What am I trying to do at the end? What's the end result to be? And if I'm trying to take this step and get my hips very open, and that's my priority in the downswing, then rotating them a lot like you are right now in the backswing doesn't make a lot of sense. So by shifting your focus to what the end result is, it's going to help you start getting into this position a lot easier. So you'll notice here, my hips haven't really turned very much because they don't need to do what I'm trying to do in the downswing.
Once you've made a nice turn where your chest is away from the target, your arm is pointing straight down the target line, back away from behind you, step onto your toe, pivot, and you'll see that as you do this, it's okay for your foot to rotate, and that will help you learn to feel your hip rotation and the speed that gives you to help propel that arm down and to move your arm faster using your legs. So let's do this a few times and get a feel for it. So we're going to preset the arm, rotate back. You can see that my arm is pointing down the target line, my chest is pointing straight back at the camera, back behind me. I'm going to step, pivot, and throw. So now, as I do this, my hips are wide open, and they help to propel that arm down through the hitting area to get a good snap and release.
So Marco, as you noticed also that you were hitting behind the ball pretty significantly there, and that's just because your lower body hasn't cleared enough to the left, hasn't rotated enough, hasn't pulled the arms down far enough. The lower body's just out of sequence there. So what you'll find as you start doing this is you're going to feel like your arm is way, way back behind. It's lagging behind in the whole swing. It's so much further behind than your lower body. That's what you're going to focus on, is getting that lower body to lead and just leave the arm. And then right at the bottom is when you release that arm and club, or in this case, the ball with this drill.
I want to do that several times to get a feel for how quickly this onto my toe, pivot, straighten the leg, rotate the hips, and that gives me the speed to really fling the arm through the hitting area. Once I have that,
as you can see the timestamp in the video where we're at here, so we're going to focus on now getting this movement done with the club.
Throwing the ball like this, you're going to have secondary tilt. Your axis is going to lean back a little bit. Your right elbow, trail arm elbow is going to come down by your belt as you throw. It's not this, it's more of a sidearm throw to get that proper release to get the club down on plane.
So at this point, what you would want to be doing, as I mentioned, as I was showing you in my swing, how when my left arm, in this case I was talking about there, is about parallel to the ground, my lower body's loaded and ready to go back to the left, but the club keeps moving back in the backswing. And that's what you want to start feeling, is that your arms and club are still going back while you're lifting up your leg and getting ready to step and stomp down, and that hip movement is what's going to bring the club down for you.
Your step and pivot to make it more like your normal swing. So I'm just taking a little tiny step, but what I'm really trying to feel here is that speed of throwing, that throwing motion. It's still the most efficient way to propel an object that man has figured out.
So that's the big key. You want to, and again, this video goes deeper on this, so watch this video. I'll put the link in the description below. But the biggest thing that you need to do is don't worry about what you're doing in your backswing. Worry about what you're trying to do in the downswing. And if we do that, we shift our focus to the end result instead of the 50,000 steps we've got to do in between to get there. It'll help you start gelling these things together without having to think your way through everything. So work on this drill. The throw the ball drill is going to help you a ton to get your lower body to wake up, to load it correctly in the backswing without me even trying to teach you every single little piece, every single little step on how to load your lower body in the backswing. You're going to feel it when you start doing this drill.